Hey everybody, it's Dan. Thank you so much for joining us for Church Online. We are so pumped about today's service. We're kicking off a brand new series that we're calling Together. You are going to love it. And I just want to say thank you to all of you guys who've been watching and giving. Your generosity has been incredible. Since the pandemic started back in March, you have not stopped. It has been incredible to see God work through you and then into the hands and the hearts of the people in this church and community. We are months past March, and we have not had to take a moment's break on our generosity from our church to our church family and into the community. In fact, we've kind of turned up the gas in our generosity, and we've only been able to do it because of you. And so from the bottom of my heart and from all of us here at the church, thank you so much. You can continue to give, or maybe it'll be your first time giving. You can head over to hermantownchurch.com/give. It'll take just a second to pop in your information. You can make a one-time gift, or you can set up like a reoccurring gift there as well. And again, thank you guys so much. There's a couple huge things I want to ask of you today. We need your help. The first thing, if you've been following us at all over the last few weeks, we were doing a series called You Belong. Basically, what we were saying is that everyone who joins us online or walks into this church, this is going to be a place where anybody, and I mean anybody, regardless of what you believe or who you are or what you're facing, this is a place for you to belong. But we need your help to make that a reality for those of you that are comfortable attending in-person services. We have a team called the host team, and that team stretches all the way to the parking lot, into the lobby, here into the auditorium. They interact with families, with children, and with everyone who walks through the doors. That's our host team, and we need your help. If you attend an in-person service, would you consider serving on our host team? If you can smile, if you can make big eyes with a mask on, and so people know that you're there and that you're engaged, if you can do a wave, or those that are comfortable with it, a high five, we would love for you to join our host team. If you can just be friendly, if you can help find people seats, if you can go out to the parking lot and make sure that there's salt on the ice and that people are welcomed in and doors are open for them, then we have a place for you on our host team. It's really simple to do. All you have to do is text HCC Serve, all one word, HCC Serve. Make sure it's all one word to this number, 43506. 43506, text the word HCC Serve, and you will get a text message back, and we will get you plugged in to serving here every week on our host team. And if you can serve weekly, monthly, or every couple weeks, either way, we would love to have you join our team. And then our second ask is something we're super excited about. We haven't let everyone know this yet online, but this year, the week of Christmas, we are doing an outdoor live nativity production. It is going to be incredible, and we need your help for that as well. From tech to lighting, sound, actors, singers, we need everyone and anyone who would like to be involved to do the same. This time, just text the word nativity. You'll have to look it up to know how to spell it. Nativity to 43506. It's the same number for both. To serve on our host team is HCC Serve, all one word, and then nativity is simple. Just text the word nativity to 43506. We would love for you to be involved, or one or both of those things here at the church. It is going to be incredible. We can't wait for our nativity event this year. Well, listen, wherever you're watching from, sit back, relax, and let's worship together.
I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, and I've heard tender whispers of love in the dead of night, as you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's It's who I am. It's who I am. Oh, I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you can provide, because you know what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. Yeah. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. Yeah. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Oh, you are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Yes, you are. Faith is rising, trust is rising. Put our hope, put our hope. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, oh, it goes on throughout the, sing it over your home. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. You go before, you go before, you go behind, you go before, you go behind. It's who you are. It's who you are. Yeah. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. Sing this love. Oh Lord, so undeniable. I can hardly think. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly speak as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into the love. You're ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Oh, your goodness, oh, your kindness, it goes on throughout the ages. Yes, yes. Oh, that's the truth today. That's the truth today. Yeah. You're a good, good Father. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Snow shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Snow wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Snow shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Snow wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Snow shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Snow wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
There's
No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it,
And I don't deserve it.
Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yes, Father, we just thank you for your presence here today. Lord, we thank you for your love that reaches through the computer, reaches through the television, reaches through the phone to our hearts, Father. Lord, you're present and you're with us in this moment. I just pray that each person would just receive a greater portion of your love, God, a greater understanding of your love for them. Father, that changes everything. Lord, help us know how much you love us, Father. We thank you for who you are. We thank you for your love today. We're confident in your love for us today. It's in your name that we pray, and we say, Amen.
Hey, everybody, we're so glad you're joining us from wherever it is that you are watching. We're kicking off a brand new series today that we're calling Together. And I want to start by reading this really great verse out of the Bible. Now, if you've been to the church for any amount of time or if you watch us online, you may have heard me say that this is like Acts chapter 2 is one of my favorite chunks of scripture in all of the Bible. It's the beginning of the very first church. Now, we'll read the whole thing here in just a moment, but I want to read just one verse out of Acts 2:44. Now, let me set this up because this is right after Jesus has left. He came and he died. He's resurrected from the dead, and now he's gone, and he has sent out his disciples into the world to share the message of God's love and forgiveness everywhere they go. And here's what it says. Acts 2:44, written by a man named Luke, as he's documenting the start of the very first church. He says this, and all the believers met together. All the believers met together. And then this is how Luke describes how they met together and what that looked like. It says that they were devoting themselves to each other. It says that they met together. It says that they shared meals together. They worshiped together. They prayed together. They shared with others, and from home to home, they hung out together sharing meals. They were having dinner together. What's interesting to me about this is this question. Why was that their reaction? Jesus said to go into all the world, and their initial reaction to that command was to start meeting together, to worship together, to share meals together, to pray together. And so I believe this. Here's what I believe. I believe that the reason why they started meeting together, the reason why that was their default when Jesus said go, their first reaction to going was meeting together, can be found in the very beginning of the Bible, where it says this in Genesis chapter 1:26. Then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Now, who was God talking to? God was talking to his son, Jesus, who at the time's name wasn't Jesus. Yeah, that was his earthly name, but he was talking about the Godhead, what we call, though it's not a word out of the Bible, what we call in Christianity the Trinity. God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit. This 3-in-1 community. He said, let us make humanity in our image. Let us make mankind just like us. We're a community, Father, Son, and Spirit. We're a community. Let's make man and woman to be in community as well. And he had first made man, and then here's what he says about man in Genesis 2:18. The very next chapter, at the very beginning, he says this. Then the Lord said, it's not good for man to be alone. So God sets up humanity in this way. We're going to make humanity in our image. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, 3-in-1. This community, we're going to create man in our image, and it's not good for this humanity to do life alone. We don't want them doing life alone. It's not even good that they do life alone. We want them in community. We want humanity in community. Now, I realize this, not a lot of people are just like me. I have a very community-minded mindset. It's my personality. And most people who are extroverted the way I am, that idea is great. Oh, community, let's hang out. The idea of going into a crowded concert energizes me. I get excited when I show up at a restaurant and there's a bit of a line. I mean, I want to get in and get my food, but that just means I get to people watch and say hey to people, and there's interaction and energy going on. For some of you, that stresses you out. The idea of going to the state fair stresses you out. That energizes me. I want to go. I want to go on the busiest nights. I love being around people. I get energized from it. I get excited about it. Now, granted, I enjoy like some quiet time, and I love time with just me and my wife, or just me and my wife and my kids, or one-on-one with one of my kids. I love that too. But the idea of community excites me. The idea of airports, I love them. I meet new friends every time I fly, whether it be in the airport area, the gate area, or in a restaurant, or in those little shops that they have, or on the plane. I love meeting and greeting, hanging out with people. I lived in Vegas. My family and I lived in Vegas for a while, and 2 million people live in a very small valley in Nevada, Las Vegas. It's in this valley. And there's 2 million people packed into this small area. And so the idea of that I loved. When we moved there, I loved it. I grew up in this town in Duluth, Minnesota. Born here, grew up here, went to school all the way through until I graduated, even hung out for a year after that. I loved this area, but I was so excited to move into Las Vegas when our family did because there was so many people. Now, my wife is very different. My wife, Lindsay, loves Duluth. She loves the size of this community, and Vegas was a little much for her. And not only did we have 2 million people living in that small area, on average, 50 million people a year fly in or drive in as visitors to Vegas. Every single year, 50 million people. Now, those numbers are sending some of you into a panic. The idea of that type of environment is not something you enjoy. You would never, ever sign up for that. However, it fires me up. As a matter of fact, one of the craziest things I ever saw in Vegas, I was pretty new to Vegas, and it was the summertime. It was extremely hot. Temperatures get well up over 100 degrees there. No humidity. It's a dry heat, but man, it was hot. It was toasty. And my favorite coffee shop is down in a part of Vegas called the Fremont area. It's like old Vegas, the original casinos. A Golden Nugget is down there, right? But anyways, my favorite coffee shop was down there. And so I parked. I had to walk a couple blocks to get to my favorite coffee shop. And as I'm walking down the street, there's bars and clubs and restaurants and coffee shops. And my favorite one's right ahead. I'm walking straight ahead to my favorite one. It's right down maybe a block now. And up ahead is this really cool little restaurant. And this young man stood out. And the reason he stood out to me is because it was like 110, 115 degrees out, and he had this monster thick black leather jacket on. And I thought, good Lord, man, who could stand to be out here sitting there eating with a friend at this restaurant? Who could stand to sit out there in 110 degrees in a thick black leather jacket? Didn't faze him at all, but I saw him ahead, and he had this big, like jet black hair, kind of poofy and real long, maybe hair down in the middle of his back. And then as I got closer, maybe 10, 15 yards away, I noticed his hair start moving. His hair started moving. Now, it wasn't windy in Vegas. A car didn't go screaming by and that back wind blew his hair. But his hair started moving. I thought that was strange. And I just kind of kept staring. For some reason, my eyes were kind of drawn to him. And as I walked to get closer to him, his hair started moving like frantically. It was obvious there was something underneath his hair. My first thought was he had his hand back scratching the back of his head, and his hand was moving his hair. So I didn't think much about it until I got right here. I passed him, and I kind of looked back, and as God is my witness, out of his hair crawled a white albino rat about this big. The brother had a rat living in his hair. And it was moving around inside there. Crawled out onto his shoulder like it was nothing. He kept on eating and kept on having a conversation with the guy from him. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was in shock. I thought, am I really looking at a rat? This dude had a pet rat, right? Craziest thing I ever saw. Of all the crazy stuff I saw in Vegas, without question, the craziest thing I ever saw. And I guess I shouldn't judge the guy. He just wanted to be loved by somebody. But I love lots of people. That's what I loved about Vegas. And I realized that some of us are not the same way. So at any time that we talk about, especially in a church setting, about community, and you were created for community, it's not good that you live life alone. And let me just pause because I want to make sure you hear what I'm not saying. I'm not talking about romantic relationships. There are people who are very happy living their whole lives single. So I'm not talking about being single and not in a dating or marriage or a deep committed relationship, or being married or being in a deep committed relationship. I'm not talking about that when it comes to being alone, because oftentimes that's what we talk about. I'm alone again on Valentine's Day. I'm going to my parents' house again without a date year after year. I'm alone. I'm not talking about alone like that. When God said in Genesis 2, it's not good for humanity to be alone, he wasn't talking about your dating status or your marriage status. He's talking about living life away from community. And it appears from the very beginning that God created us to be in community. In fact, the writer of this really cool book right in the middle of the Bible called Proverbs, written by a very wise king named Solomon, he says this about community. It's a very interesting verse, and I recommend, all of Proverbs are really, really good. There's 31 Proverbs in the Bible that he wrote for his son. But he said this in Proverbs 18:1, whoever isolates himself seeks his own desires. He breaks out against all sound judgment. So there's a case that can be made that because we're created in God's image and God is this 3-in-1 community, and God even said it's not good. He's our creator. He knew it wasn't good for us to live life outside of community, or as he put it, to live life alone. And then later, this wise king writes, isolation is a bad thing for our lives. It's unhealthy. It can become toxic because we only seek our own desires. And he says, and we break out against all sound judgment. When we isolate ourselves, we push back against others, and we become self-absorbed. Jesus goes as far as to say this in Matthew 18:20, where there are 2 or 3 gathered together as my followers, I am there among them. There's something special, something even sacred and holy about living within community. Now, again, with this conversation, I have an attitude about it sometimes. Because though I like people, I don't always love living life in some kind of community with other people. By nature, I'm a pretty private person. Now, I'll get up and I'll say all the dumb things I've ever done in my life. But when it comes to personal stuff, by nature, I'm very private. And I also have, I don't know if you're this way or not, but I also have this kind of attitude. I don't need other people. I know needy people. I know people who are very, very needy. I'm not one of them. So I don't need you in my life. I don't need you asking me questions. Now, I've got some super close friends in my life, super close, intimate, long-term friends in my life, both of which I had conversations with today. But I'll just be really honest with you. If I never spoke to them, I would miss them, but I wouldn't feel all needy, where are my friends at? We've all met ultra needy people. I'm not one of those people. And so I can see how some of us look at this idea that God created us for community. And if you've ever been to church before, you probably even heard that message before. Or even this idea, you're pushing back against, I don't need, what do you mean I need to be in community? I need other people. I don't really need other people. So let's pause because I want to talk to those of us who don't feel like we need people, but I also want to talk to those of us who feel like you're not in some kind of community in your life and you have a real need. You want to be in community. I want to talk to both of you in a moment, but I want to go back to this kind of idea that that's how we were created. Because I think it's important, and I think it's an important point to allow to sink at least into our hearts for consideration, to prayerfully consider and to contemplate. I think people can live life totally solo, totally Lone Ranger, totally isolated. You can pull it off. You can do it. You can push everyone away from your life and you'll get through life to probably a ripe old age. But I would argue this, living life outside of community, though it's possible, is not God's design. Though it's possible and you could figure it out and you could pull it off, I don't believe it's actually God's design. I believe you and I were designed. It's in our DNA. And the very first church, the very first thing they did when Jesus left is they came together. They prayed together. They shared meals together. They met each other's needs and they did it together. Took some of what I have and take some of what you have and let's go help people in need. They did it together. They had dinner together daily, home to home. They believed together mattered. And I believe together matters. Now, I want to talk to those of us just for a moment like me. who, though we may even like people, I'm not talking about whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. Because extroverts, people energize me. Some of you may be more introverted and you don't really like being around people. I'm just talking about those of us who are convinced we don't need other people. And so what I want to do is I want to pause and just give you, now I would argue you're wrong, but let's give you that for a moment. I would argue that you are dead wrong, that you actually do need other people, but let's forget that for a second. I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. Let's say you're right. Let's just say you don't need other people. You're good with you, and you're going to let them do them. You want you to do you. I'll do me, and I don't really need other people. Have you ever thought, maybe for a moment, if you're like that, which is my bent, that's my default. I don't need you. I don't need other people. I'm good. Have we ever thought for a moment, those of us that have that mentality, that have that thought, even if we're right, have we ever thought that maybe, though we don't need someone else, maybe, just maybe, someone else needs you? Maybe someone else needs you. There's this very interesting word I used just a moment ago. I kind of lobbed it in there on purpose. I threw this out there. In Proverbs 18:1, it says that a person that isolates themselves seeks only their own desires. And the word I kind of lobbed out there is the word self-absorbed. I want to read the definition of the word self-absorbed for just a moment. This is what the definition of self-absorbed is. Preoccupied with one's own feelings, own interests, or their own situation. They are preoccupied with my own feelings, my own interests, and my own situations. I would argue those of us that have pushed people away because we don't need them have a little bit of a problem with being self-absorbed. And I will be the first to raise my hand and say, I have a problem with it. Oftentimes, I get so focused on my own desires, my own opinions, and my own situation that the situations and the opinions and other people's lives tend not to matter as much to me as my own life does. One of the issues that I wrestle with, and maybe you do too, is being self-absorbed, where you matter most to you, where you've got to look out for number one. And so what if this idea of community wasn't just about you needing someone else, though I could argue you do, but maybe it's more about someone else needing you, about someone else needing me. I want to read Acts 2:42 through 47. I want to read this chunk of scripture that I quoted from at the very, very beginning. And the reason I want to read it is because of the beauty of what happens when people live in community, not because it's just about what they need, but they realize someone else needs them. Acts 2:42 through 47 says, all believers devoted themselves to apostles' teaching, fellowship, that's hanging out, and sharing meals and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders, and all the believers met together. Their initial reaction was to hang out together in one place, and they shared everything they had. If it was all about me, there would be no one to share with. And those people, if it was all about me, then those people that needed something would have no one to share with. They sold their property, they sold their possessions, and they shared the money with those in need. The reason they shared the money with those in need is because life was not all about themselves. They had gotten past being self-absorbed. They worshiped together at the temple each day, and they met in homes daily. They shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all people. And each day, the Lord added to their fellowship, to their numbers, those who were being saved. It was such an incredible thing happening because there was a group of people that didn't just think that community was about them. And maybe some of them were needy. And they needed other people in their lives. I would argue this. Those that we call needy sometimes are just those of us who realize we're better when we have others in our lives. Don't ever let someone call you needy because you are the type of person that realizes you're better when there's another person or there's several people in your life. People like me who think it's all about me, sometimes we get self-absorbed. I don't need other people. We look at those types of people as needy when maybe they have figured something out that I haven't. That maybe I need people and I don't want to admit it. Maybe the idea that I need people shows a weakness in my life. Maybe it's not just about me. Maybe I shouldn't be so self-absorbed and I realize that someone else might need me, that I'm not living my life just for myself. In fact, in a moment in Jesus' life, hanging out with his community, you notice Jesus didn't walk around the earth just alone, kind of a loner hanging out. No, he chose 12 other dudes to be in his community. Let me just give you a little heads up, a little side note. If Jesus needed community, I would argue you do too. Now, Jesus is having this conversation, and he says, the disciples say to him, Lord, when you get to heaven, which one of us is going to be able to sit in a place of power with you? And a huge argument came out. It says that they were angry. One version of the Bible says that they were indignant with each other because they were jockeying for position. They became self-absorbed. And Jesus put a stop to it right there, and he said this. There are some of you that take leadership and lord it over others. You make it about you. But let me tell you about me, Jesus said. Let me tell you about the Son of Man, the Son of God. I didn't come to be served. I didn't come to be self-absorbed. I didn't come to make life all about me. He said, I didn't come to be served, but to serve and give my life for others, for the ransom of humanity. Jesus knew something to be true about humanity because he created it. We are at our best when we are not living selfishly, when we're not living self-absorbed, but instead living selflessly. Community is not just about my need for others. Community is about others' need for me. Can I just tell you today that the world needs you? There are people that God has placed around you that need you. And you can choose to live a life self-absorbed, where you make life all about you and you don't need anybody else. Or you can choose to take the posture of Christ and say, I didn't come for myself. My life is not just about me and the few closest to me, but we're going to make our lives about helping another. You may not need somebody, but somebody may need you. Would you pray with me? God, I pray today that the same attitude, the same heart that was in Christ, that was in those first believers would be in us. That our initial reaction to our faith would be to gather together, to come from separate to unified. And my prayer today, God, is that we would not live a life so self-absorbed that we keep everybody at arm's length when they might need us. And God, I also pray today you'd give us the strength to admit that in all reality, we need others to make us better. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.